Hang on a minute, let's put it a different way. If the Prime Minister has lied to the Commons, do you agree that's a resignation event? Yes.
Mr. Speaker, to date so far this year, 10,000 young, undocumented males have illegally crossed the English Channel into our country, a 40% increase on this time last year, many coming from cultures that are somewhat alien to ours. They are being housed at a cost of many billions of pounds a year in hotels and increasingly in private rented homes. The effect on communities is one of a sense of deep unfairness, actually bordering on resentment. In Runcorn alone, there are 750 of these young men. Just in one.
Calm down.
Is it not time to admit
Maybe you can pay for it.
that Smash the Gangs was nothing more than an election slogan and not a policy? And isn't it time to declare a national emergency?
Will you give way?
Accordingly.
Mr. Speaker, we are passing a borders bill with extensive powers to smash the gangs. These are terrorist-like powers that give powers to the police to intercept where they think the suspects are committing people smuggling, which is a vile trade. We must take back control of our borders after the last government lost control. But what did he and his party do? Did they support those extra measures to actually smash the gang? No, they went in the lobby with this lot in their new coalition to vote against them. And let's be clear what a vote for his party means. It means a vote to charge for the NHS. It means a pro-Putin foreign policy and a vote against workers' rights. And now we hear, Mr. Speaker, he's recruited Liz Truss as his new top advisor. And we as he was...
Boom, no warning, no safety net, live television, raw and unscripted. Katie Hopkins walked straight into the studio and did what most pundits, presenters and politicians have spent years avoiding. She ripped the glossy mask off Keir Starmer and showed the country what was hiding underneath. No rehearsed lines, no PR polish, no BBC cushioning, just pressure, precision and an unrelenting spotlight. This wasn't an interview, it wasn't a debate, it was an exposure. From the first sentence, Hopkins made it clear this wasn't going to be another tame political exchange. Line by line, she dismantled Starmer's carefully constructed image, the calm voice, the sensible suit, the illusion of competence. What she revealed wasn't strength, it was emptiness, a man built on optics, not conviction, a leader who mastered the art of sounding serious while saying absolutely nothing. Starmer sat there rigid, blinking, frozen, like someone watching their own cover story collapse in real time. Every time he tried to speak, Hopkins cut straight through the recycled phrases and focus-grouped nonsense. It was surgical, calm, devastating. Her words didn't shout, they sliced. This wasn't about policy disagreement. This was about trust. And she went straight for the pressure points. She dragged his Brexit flip-flops into the open. The man who spent years trying to undo a democratic vote, now suddenly dressing himself up as a patriot when it became politically convenient. 1 minute aligned with Brussels, the next cosplaying as the voice of the working class. Hopkins didn't just point out the contradiction. She pinned it to the wall and made the whole country stare at it. And then she moved to the migrant hotel crisis, Labour's favourite morality lecture turned inside out. While British families slept in cars and veterans were forgotten, Starmer's version of compassion found endless funding for hotel rooms. "You call it dignity," she said, locking eyes with him. "But to millions of Britons, it looked like betrayal." He had no answer, because there wasn't one. The audience wasn't watching a TV segment anymore. They were watching a political persona unravel. Hopkins stayed composed. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Every sentence landed heavier than the last. She reminded viewers how Labour preached equality while selectively applying it, how free speech was policed with enthusiasm while real crimes were buried under silence and paperwork. Then came the moment the room changed. Hopkins dropped what she called the truth Starmer never wanted aired. Internal party discussions, strategic silence, grooming gang scandals quietly deprioritised in key constituencies to avoid community tensions. Not incompetence, calculation, not ignorance. Strategy. Starmer's face drained. No denial, no counterattack, just panic. The silence that followed said more than any statement ever could. She pressed harder. So comedians are punished. Elderly women investigated for tweets. Authors cancelled. But when it comes to organised abuse, suddenly the files go missing. Suddenly nobody wants to rock the boat. Hopkins didn't accuse, she interrogated, and Starmer looked like a man trapped between the truth and the lies he'd been living in for years. Was he the progressive saviour or the party puppet? Was he protecting British values or dismantling them under the language of tolerance? Every answer he attempted only dug the hole deeper. The more he spoke, the more hollow he sounded. Then she turned to foreign policy, British troops, foreign wars, vague promises, no clarity, no cost, no explanation, all while nurses strike, services crumble, and the NHS bleeds. You want to fight wars you can't define, she said, for people you can't name, while your own country is breaking. Again, silence. And then the killer question. Why now? Why did peace suddenly matter just as election season rolled around? Starmer fiddled with his tie. Muted words about diplomacy. A glance toward the host. Searching for rescue. None came. The studio wasn't clapping, it wasn't laughing, it was watching. Hopkins leaned in for the final blow of the segment. Integrity, leadership, trust. Where was it when MPs were silenced, when reports were ignored, when silence was rebranded as strategy? If this is leadership, she said, God help Britain. And just like that, the image cracked. Live. Unfiltered. Inescapable. The man sold as the adult in the room looked like a politician without a script, exposed under lights that don't forgive. And as the cameras rolled on, one thing became painfully clear. This wasn't just a bad interview, it was the beginning of a reckoning. As the cameras kept rolling, it became obvious this wasn't finished. Not even close. What viewers were witnessing wasn't a clash of opinions. It was the slow collapse of a political illusion that had been protected for years by soft interviews and friendly headlines. Hopkins went back in harder this time. This wasn't just about weak leadership anymore. This was about betrayal. She tore into the myth of Keir Starmer, the unifier, the man sold to the public as calm, reasonable and steady. Hopkins called it cosplay. 1 minute wrapped in the Union Jack, posing in high-vis jackets and factory floors. The next, quietly reassuring Brussels elites that Brexit could be softened, reversed, or ignored when no one was watching. Patriotism for the cameras, globalism behind closed doors. She reminded everyone that Starmer didn't just question Brexit, he worked relentlessly to overturn it. Second referendums, legal manoeuvres, backroom pressure. When it failed, he simply changed costumes and hoped the country's memory was short. Hopkins wasn't having it. She had the receipts and she read them out without blinking. Then she went straight for his legal legacy, the badge he wears like armour. Director of Public Prosecutions, the title meant to scream integrity. Under Hopkins's spotlight, it looked very different. Unanswered cases, grooming scandals mishandled, political convenience placed above child safety, victims ignored, files quietly shelved. You talk about law and order, she snapped, but the only thing you ever prosecuted was public opinion. Starmer flinched, just slightly. Enough. She followed the trail to voting blocks and demographic calculations, areas where identity politics wasn't challenged, it was monetised. Deals made in silence, controversies buried for electoral comfort. You didn't earn trust, Hopkins said. You traded it. Equality shattered into its real shape. Division dressed up as virtue. And then she detonated the unspoken. The whispers no studio likes touching, the private life contradictions, the voice coach, the carefully manufactured tone of seriousness. Hopkins didn't linger on gossip. She turned it into metaphor. A man so detached from authenticity, he outsourced even his voice. Your entire act is rented, she said, even the sound of leadership. The audience felt it. This wasn't tabloid drama. It was exposure. She fired question after question, fast, relentless. Why the constant U-turns? Why praise Brexit after trying to kill it? Why promise law and order while excusing chaos inside your own party? Why speak toughness only when the polls panic you into it? Starmer had no answers because there weren't any. Just that frozen stare. A man trying to sell two stories to the same country. Hopkins leaned forward, lowering her voice. "This isn't left versus right anymore," she said. "This is about trust." And then the line that landed like a hammer. "You are the least trustworthy man in British politics." No applause. None needed. The silence was the verdict. The show had turned into a courtroom, and Starmer wasn't being judged by journalists. He was being judged by the people watching at home. The ones tired of performance politics, tired of slogans without substance, tired of leaders who look the part but stand for nothing. Hopkins delivered the deeper truth, the one everyone sensed but rarely said out loud. Starmer wasn't just weak, he was hollow. A placeholder, a polished puppet designed to keep the machine running while pretending to represent change. She tore through his economic promises next. Fantasy numbers, bottomless pledges, no explanation. Fully funded everything, magically paid for by nothing. "You're not a leader," she said. "You're a spreadsheet with legs." He couldn't explain the black hole. He didn't even try. Then immigration. The subject Labour dances around like a legal minefield. One day, compassion speeches. The next, sudden tough talk. Hopkins called it what it was. Panic polling. A last-minute scramble for voters drifting elsewhere. Not belief, not principle. Survival. British families waiting years for housing. Towns stretched to breaking point. Crime ignored. Concerns dismissed as far right. The audience didn't cheer. They nodded because they recognised it. And then Hopkins went nuclear. Private meetings, global financiers, unelected figures shaping policy behind closed doors. Promises to Britain on camera, different assurances whispered elsewhere. "You're not rebuilding the country," she said. "You're renting it out." By now, Starmer wasn't defending himself. He was enduring it. Hopkins stood tall for the final strike. "You reflect whatever people want to see," she said, "but behind the mirror, there's nothing. No conviction, no courage, just fear." She compared him to a malfunctioning machine, speaking when prompted, silent when challenged. And finally, she turned away from him and spoke to the country. "This man will not protect you. He will not fight for you. He will not speak for you. He speaks for the system. Britain deserves better. Real leadership, real courage, real honesty." The broadcast ended. The damage didn't. Because in one appearance, live and uncensored, the illusion shattered.